Hello, I'm Chris Flowers, and I'm here conducting interviews for the Young Republicans, and it is my privilege today to interview the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Mr. Kirk Adams. Speaker Adams, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it. I thought it was pretty imperative that we get the chance to interview you because you are doing some groundbreaking things here. Like I said, I was just out at the city of Surprise working, and I'm in the business community. That's what I do for a living. So jobs are coming to Arizona, and I think the leadership that you're providing with the jobs bill is phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I wanted the people to actually hear your take on it, what it is you guys have started here, and how Arizona's open for business. So,
well, that's a great question. I'm thankful to you for asking it. We began this process in the House back in September 2009. Begin to talk about, look, our problems in the state government aren't just what state government has to spend and what it doesn't have to spend. It also is the role that we play in creating an environment so that the entrepreneurs, the risk takers can create jobs, which ultimately creates wealth, which ultimately creates tax revenue, which ultimately creates revenues for the state of Arizona to operate our core mission. And it really begins with the private sector. And I think it's important to say at this point that I think we really understand that, unlike the Obama administration, we don't believe that government creates jobs. And government certainly doesn't create wealth. But what we can do is get in the way. And when you look at Arizona economic policy over the last 20 years, we've become very uncompetitive in regards to our business tax policy. So if you're an entrepreneur that wants to choose between Arizona or Texas or Nevada or Utah or Idaho, Arizona would rank at the bottom of that list because our business taxes were just too high. And so we began in September 09 of this process of studying the problem, putting together a policy to address the problem, and we introduced it last January 2010, as the jobs bill. And we successfully passed it out of the House, but it stalled in the Senate. And this year, we worked with Governor Brewer and President Pierce, and this year we got it done. What we passed out of here last week was the largest tax reduction in state history. And here's the significance of that. It's hard to reduce business taxes in good times, but to do it during a recession sends a very strong message, I think, nationally, that Arizona understands that the way to get our economy moving again is to allow businesses to keep more of what they earn. Because when they do that, they can invest that in new facilities, new employees, new product lines. The answer is not increasing taxes. Clearly, if that worked, then the Obama stimulus money would have pulled us out of this recession. I think if there is a silver lining to that stimulus money, it would be it's proven that government money does not end recessions. That's right. So that was a big victory, very important for Arizona, and as a result, I think we will begin to see the kinds of announcements that we saw last week with Intel announcing a $5 billion plant, a surprise announcement that came yesterday. There will be an announcement in the East Valley of a major manufacturer deciding to locate in Arizona. Great. In the long run, Arizona's economy will be more diverse and better off because of this bill.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your leadership on that and sticking with it and fighting for Arizona.
Thank you.
That. When we talk about leadership, you have taken a significant role in doing something that's been unprecedented. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about your initiative that you started personally, opting out of the pension plan, please?
Well, I think you have to lay the background on this first. According to the Pew Research Organization, the public pensions in the states have $1 trillion deficit, meaning that the commitments that they've made and the revenues that they have in those systems are $1 trillion short. That's a huge problem. Some academics believe it's actually as high as $3 trillion. And so in Arizona, we know from the studies that have been done that it's about a $10 billion deficit in Arizona. Put that in perspective, our revenues are about $8.5 billion. All of our revenues for state government. This is a huge problem which has been ignored for some time because it's a political hot potato. Nobody wants to take on the unions. Union leadership can be particularly forceful in their opposition. We're seeing that in Wisconsin the last couple of weeks. And so a lot of leaders have shied away from tackling this problem. And what I decided, and I think you're seeing leaders all across the country decide the same thing, is we can no longer kick the can down the road on these systemic problems. If we keep kicking the can down the road and refuse to confront and have sort of these grown-up conversations about what we can afford and what we can't afford, ultimately, if we keep doing that, the taxpayers are going to be asked to bail it out. And you cannot raise taxes high enough to bail these systems out. And so that's why we began a process of looking at pension reform back in the fall, September precisely. As we got going in this process, and I began to recognize the really difficult choices that we were going to have to make, I thought it was important that I set an example and withdraw myself from the public pension system. There are 4 pension systems in the state of Arizona. One of those is just for elected officials and judges. Well, probably wouldn't surprise you to know, Chris, that the program designed by politicians for politicians is the most generous of all.
You think?
It is the most generous of all, and it's happened over a long period of time. And what I have done is decided that I'm not going to participate in that system. That means a real dollar loss to me personally, but I didn't run for the legislature in the first place to collect a pension. And I don't think the voters sent me here to collect a pension. I mean, let me show you how ridiculous this is. In Arizona, if you're in the state legislature, you can serve 5 years in the legislature and draw early retirement. Now tell me where, anywhere else in the private sector, you can get that kind of deal. You just can't get that kind of deal.
I can't get it.
So our package addresses those problems within the public official retirement system, but it also takes system-wide. So for example, we say, look, you need to work to collect a retirement until age 62 if you're a state employee. If you're a firefighter or a cop, you need to work 25 years instead of 20 years. These are important changes that will make the system healthier and allow that rookie cop, that rookie teacher, to be able to have a system that they can rely upon. But more than that, we also include in the bill a provision that requires the state treasurer's office, through the Board of Investment, to tell us how to transition, do the study and tell us how to transition from a defined benefit program, which is what public employees have now, to a defined contribution plan, which is what most of us have in the private sector. We call them 401k style plans.
Right.
So if you examine this a little bit deeper, a defined benefit program is a guarantee of what your employer will put in towards your retirement and a guarantee of what you'll get out at the back end. You have no such guarantees in a 401k. You're not guaranteed a specific income when you retire with a 401k. Yet public employees have that benefit. And I think we need to begin that transition process to 401k style plans. It'll save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. And it will bring some equilibrium between the private sector and the private sector. Because taxpayers should not be forced to pay more and more for taxes for benefits that they would never have any hope of receiving themselves.
That's right. That's right. And on that, we're going to take a short break. And we're back with the Speaker of the House, Mr. Kirk Adams. I really can appreciate the initiative that you've taken. I will pledge my congressional campaign that if I do win my congressional seat, I will follow suit and I will do the exact same thing, and I will opt out of the pension plan as well. I make that pledge to you right now. I make that pledge to the people. But also, don't you think, in essence, too, that will change the mindset of the people that run for public office? Because just like what you said, you didn't run for this office for the pension plan. I think it also sets up a mindset for people that are looking to run for office, like, we're here to serve the people. Yeah. We're not here to serve ourselves. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, this should be about public service, and we need to reinvigorate that concept of politicians as public servants, not politicians as taking more from the system. But I really also think that what this really also represents is a real effort to address long-standing problems that have been ignored. And you can talk about entitlement reform, you can talk about the Social Security bubble that's going to burst, Medicare, and on and on. These are all problems. Government spending generally. These are all problems that this country and this state has been reluctant to address because they're hard. Well, sometimes when you're grown-ups, you have to have hard conversations.
That's right.
And you have to make hard decisions. And I think this pension reform is part of that. And I think you're seeing all across the country, whether it's Governor Walker or Governor Christie, New Jersey, other governors as well. Governor Mitch Daniels is taking on some of these issues. These are important issues for us to start to talk about, because it all really ties into what is the government that we can afford, what is the proper role of government. And that is why you'll see this year, I believe, the largest reductions to state government in Arizona history by far. Because we can't afford the size of government that we allowed to grow during the Governor Napolitano years.
That's right.
And we simply have to recalibrate, because ultimately government cannot be, government should not be the largest employer in the state, the entity that sucks as much money as they do out of the private sector, because it all begins with the individual business owner, the mom and dad in the home who are trying to meet their budget, who are paying their bills, who are saving for college, who are going to dry cleaner, buying cars, buying houses, saving for their retirement. That is where it begins. It does not begin in a government bureaucrat's office. And we've allowed, unfortunately, governments at all levels to creep so large that they are now impinging upon that private sector. And we need to reverse it. And so you'll see that as well in this legislature. Significant reduction in the size and scope of state government.
Great. And then lastly, in closing, I know your schedule is pretty tight. Like I said, thank you for taking the time to do this. Is there anything you'd like to tell people out there, other things that you're working on? Maybe just give people a little insight to, the work that you are definitely continue to strive for in Arizona?
The efforts, I think, for this session are getting our economy moving again, pension reform, reducing the size and spending of state government, but also making sure that we're doing all that we can do to secure our southern border. We can no longer wait for the federal government to act on these matters. I'm very pleased with the efforts of Sheriff Paul Babue in Pinal County. He's formed a border crimes unit that we're trying to get him a little bit of money to help to directly go after the violent drug cartels. We need to go after them. We can't wait, sit on our hands anymore.
Thank you.
That is a severe public safety threat, and I think he's doing the right thing. I think state government needs to support his efforts.
Yes. And this is wrapped up the interview for the Young Republicans with the Speaker of the House, Mr. Kirk Adams. Once again, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.